After hashtags, harassment, fan campaigns, and the unloading of trauma from the actors involved, on March 18th, 2021, Zack Snyder's Justice League, or the Snyder Cut, was shared on HBO Max, bringing validation to a lot of fans who fought for Snyder's vision to be brought to screen. I really enjoyed the Snyder Cut, and upon rewatching it for this video, I found myself liking it more than before, which I know is sort of like a weird opinion to have, but I think that's the consensus. It has a lot of elements of Zack Snyder that works, and those things that don't were easy to eye roll and move on from. It was mostly harmless, although I think Zack Snyder should just make music videos because he clearly loves a soundtrack. And now every time I do something cool, I think of like just Greek lamentations just going in my ear. There are clear choices narratively that elevate it beyond the Whedon version, but even within that goodness was a bittersweet acknowledgement of this project being good among the masses. Because was it worth all of the online drama to get here? And that is really one of the main tensions between the Snyder Cut, the Snyderverse, and the DCEU. So in this video, we're going to talk about the path to the Snyder Cut, what the DC Snyder Verse looks like, and what is so hard about interacting with Zack Snyder's work online, even if you like some of it. First, sponsorship. This video is sponsored by the wonderful members of my Patreon and by Brilliant. Brilliant is an educational tool that replaces lecture videos with hands-on interactive problem solving. Brilliant's mission is to inspire and develop people to achieve their goals in STEM. One person, one question, and one small commitment to learning at a time. The program really enables great teachers to illuminate the souls of math, science, and engineering through bite-sized interactive learning experiences. The courses explore various elements of the shape of our world and elevates math and science from something to be feared, which I fear it deeply, to a delightful experience of guided discovery. Brilliant offers over 60 plus courses, including ones in classical physics, foundational computer science, and logic and deduction for the Sherlock Holmes in you. Mathematical! I'll admit, as I've mentioned before, I am really bad at math and science, and it also has been kind of a source of shame because it's important to know certain things, and I'm constantly looking for ways to re-educate myself and continue learning as an adult in an affordable way. And Brilliant has been a part of that, and I want to share that with you. So if you use my URL, brilliant.org/millennialpendulum, you will get access to 20% off Brilliant Premium. And at a time where people are trying to learn new skills, to access new avenues of their life in this, what are they calling it? The great, like, rearranging or whatever. Using Brilliant is a fun, accessible way to do all of that and gain skills that you may not have been able to perfect in the regular day-to-day of school, but you're able to do now. Oh, and one more housewarming thing. I have merch. I guess just take out this top knot thing I have. Shake it off, shake it off. So I have merch. I have these trucker hats, which I love. They say thinking on it. It's a thinking cap because I'm on the road to geriatric millennial, and I'm proud of it every single day. So we have these, and we also have the nuance mugs, which who couldn't use a cup of nuance in the morning, am I right? So I will have the link to these down below, and if you're a patron, you will get 10% off of all merchandise that I have, and I'm so excited to be able to do this and have merch for the first time ever, like for real. Like I've tried before, but it's really hard to produce, so this is a very exciting venue for me. And I'll have the link down below if you're interested in getting a hat or a mug. The hats are really comfortable and they work for all head shapes, and as someone who loves hats, I love this one. Man of Steel came out in 2013 and it was met with mixed reactions. If you Google the film, is Man of Steel a good movie? What are we saying as good?
I will find him!
Written by David S. Goyer and only directed by Snyder, Man of Steel was the first Superman film to come out since the much maligned Superman Returns. It was meant to be both the first installment in the DC Extended Universe and also a revamping of the Superman film series, which started with the 1979 film Superman and has continued in that aesthetic ever since. It is important to note that Goyer is responsible for writing the screenplays to Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, which means, well, in part, which means that you have him going straight from that Nolan grounded mindset to the world of Superman. Before that, he also worked on the Blade trilogy, Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance, and Jumper. It can't all be his. Problem is that in many ways they transpose a lot of the dark tone and vibes from Batman to Superman, and they are very different characters. The film was successful, grossing over $668 million worldwide and made a net profit of approximately $42 million. In general, people praised the visuals and action, Snyder, but disliked the tone and writing. I have feelings about this film, but they're not important right now. I'll get to it. However, what is key to understanding is that this was coming after what was the best and biggest thing DC had done so far, the Dark Knight trilogy, so expectations were high, both critically and financially. At this point, Snyder as a director had 300 and Watchmen under his belt, but literally the two films preceding Man of Steel were Legends of the Guardians, The Owls of Ga'Hoole, and Sucker Punch. Even though Watchmen didn't do well, and funny enough was one of the first times the Snyder director's cut was seen as superior to the official release, he had shown himself able to work with dark superhero stuff, and I think they wanted that, they as in DC, wanted that aesthetic in the end. So in 2012, The Dark Knight Rises, which in my opinion is a bad movie, makes over $1 billion worldwide, gets overwhelming unneeded critical praise. Now the same people, Nolan and Goyer, who made that story, make the story for Man of Steel, produce it, and it makes a net profit of, again, $42 million. And that is a disappointment to DC because, like, that's not what they're expecting. They have literally just come out of making huge profits with these kind of movies and putting in big budgets, and they're not getting their returns. But you know what, they're like, Superman is maybe, he's not as popular anymore. What are we gonna do? We're gonna bring in our good boy. Let's get Batman in this bitch.
Tell me. Do you plead?
Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice was written by Goyer again, but this time they brought in Chris Terreno, who also co-wrote the script for Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
It's fine. He wrote the script for Argo. That has an Oscar or something, so he's qualified. Let me move my bag, child. Anyway, BVS is marketably like a big ass deal. It's the first live action film to feature Batman and Superman together, as well as like the first live action cinematic portrayal of Wonder Woman. Ben Affleck, we broke him down. He's in a superhero movie again. Big bad boy tings. And then
Do you know the oldest lie in America, Senator? Can I call you Jew?
You can call me whatever you like. Take a bucket of piss and call it Granny's peach tea.
You're letting him kill Martha. What does that mean?
Stop!
Why did you say that name?
It's his mother's name!
the film did make a lot of money, but for what it was meant to be and the source material star power behind it, the turnout was not what Warner Brothers expected. In its second weekend, Batman vs. Superman had an 81.2% decline on Friday, and it was considered one of the biggest Friday to Friday drops of any blockbuster ever, making it the second largest decline for a marquee superhero title behind 2003 Hulk. When you are topped by Ang Lee's Hulk in this context, it's not great, Bob. And this is what begins the true failure of confidence in Zack Snyder as the creative visual helm of the DCEU, which is floundering superbly at this time because they don't have Wonder Woman out yet. So like it's just misfire and flop.
A man I knew used to say that hope is like your car keys. Easy to lose. If you dig around, it's usually close by.
Jumping to Justice League, in this time Wonder Woman has come out and pretty much, saved the DCEU, regardless of how you may feel about the movie, and there is a shift in Gal Gadot's Diana being put in the middle of the posters as the true hook of the film. In 2017, Justice League is released, but due to the death of his daughter Autumn, Snyder had to lead the project and Joss Whedon is brought in to finish the project. It still underperforms for a Justice League movie, and it would be years before we were actually made clear about everything going on behind the scenes. And let me just state for context, Venom outperformed Justice League. I mean, good for her, but I'm sure, and technically, Venom still outperformed DC just now, but it was a lot. So when the news came out that Whedon was going to be working on Justice League, now it seems cringe, but at the time, there's a lot of excitement because Joss Whedon still had a very good reputation, and his work on the first Avengers movie set new milestones for comic book movies. Age of Ultron may not have been as good, but his brand was strong, and in retrospect, it was that brand that led to the more favorable reviews of Justice League, especially having relatively recently rewatched that movie, and it's not good in the context of the DCEU, and it's a lot. But let's get into the drama. So I was editing the video and I realized I didn't fucking explain what the Snyder Cut is about. This is why I don't have Sarah Zed's view. She knows how to balance out exposition and content. I'm just like, let's get into it. So I guess now you get to see me in my tank top as I do this. Now we can get into what is the actual difference plot-wise between the Snyder Cut and the Whedon Cut. And really it comes down to the vibes, the collections of scene, and how everything kind of lays out, which we'll kind of touch on during the drama scene. But just as a discussion of the plot, here it is. After the death of Superman, being the screamer that he is, his death wail awakens the mother boxes.
Mother boxes?
Indestructible living machines.
And summons the exiled Steppenwolf to reclaim the boxes for his uncle, Darkseid, killing many Amazons in the process. Because you know what it's like, ladies, a guy wants to get back in favor with his tyrannical uncle, so he gotta come and mess with you and all your homegirls. Bruce Wayne, feeling a bunch of white guilt over the death of Superman, is mulling over the threat of invasion and how to bring together a team of heroes to help combat this issue. So he ends up joining forces with Arthur Curry, Aquaman, Barry Allen, The Flash, and Victor Stone, who is Cyborg. The leaders of the team end up being Diana and Bruce, who get the team together. Diana knows what the prophecy's about. She's like, oh yeah, my people, we mollywopped him 65,000 years ago, but they immortal, so they ignorant. So now we gotta come beat their asses again, because Age of Heroes, we was out here doing shit, but now it's such a divisive time. You can't talk about politics with your family anymore. It's so hard. So then basically Diana and Bruce decide that they have to build a Justice League and bring it together to fight the forces of Apocalypse and the New Gods. The New Gods are essentially at least with the terms of Apocalypse's New Gods, because there's Apocalypse and there's New Genesis. This isn't a mythology video, but essentially like the New Gods are basically like the Eternals, except popular. Immortal people, one side is good, one side is bad, except they're more stony than pretty people like in the Eternals. In terms of character stuff, I think Cyborg is excellent in the Snyder Cut. We get a lot of Vic's backstory, which is so important, and I think that it has been forgotten in some ways that this role was Ray Fisher's first movie role. He kills it, and it was great to get a look at who Victor was as a person, at his intelligence, see the dynamics with his family, and Snyder being able to take the time in this film to give these new characters these stories does help it feel more like an ensemble piece. And Cyborg is definitely at the heart of the film. Indulgently so, but I'm actually okay with that, and it certainly makes me believe Ray Fisher's story about his dialogue and interactions with Snyder and why he and Whedon did not get along. Diana and the Amazons were excellent, with them being treated with a lot more dignity even in death. It was fantastic to see them back and doing cool stuff again, since Wonder Woman 1984 did not give us much in the way of Amazons, which do not forgive them for that. But so it was good to see the Amazons in control again. It was good to see Diana actually being a baddie. Batfleck gets memed a lot, but he is probably one of the best live action adaptations of an older Batman type character, and he also has the rare gift of feeling like both Batman and Bruce Wayne. And it's sad because I think in a stronger, duology of films, he would have been able to reach really iconic levels with his Batman, but I think BVS just being what BVS is, and then Justice League being its own mess, it's hard to really appreciate what Affleck brings to Batman, but he does make it work. One person who I personally feel suffers in this adaptation is Ezra Miller's Barry Allen. He is very annoying. The scene with him saving Iris is not as impactful as Snyder thought it was, and it goes on for too long. Plus, his weird moving of her hair and things comes across as creepy, not romantic. Plus, Ezra Miller has his own issues that he's dealing with in terms of their video of him choking a female fan. That's never been addressed by anyone, and it just kind of is weird to see him being put in a romantic lens with that context and having nothing ever said about that incident. I am glad, though, that Ryan Cho, Iris West, and other BIPOC characters made it back into this cut and had extended roles in the case of Victor's father. The CGI, while having a lot of budget thrown into it, feels very meh in terms of final design. I have said on Twitter that Steppenwolf looks like the personification of new metal, and I stand by that. And I also wasn't impressed by Darkseid's design in the film either, especially as someone who actively loves and thirsts after Darkseid. I want Darkseid to choke me, and I'm single now, so I'm allowed to say that. The soundtrack and musical choices of the film were kind of excessive, almost distractingly so. Mixed in with Snyder's own traditional love of slow-mo, it just made me feel like half the runtime was extending these very gratuitous scenes. I think my only true hot take is that the film does a good job of reminding me why these actors, sans Miller, were cast. Some may cringe at Diana's Wonder Woman not being afraid to kill here, especially since 1984, her being love and peace and no shooting was such a big deal. But I found that scene of her being a warrior, part afterwards with her caring for the young girls, really showed the versatility of who Wonder Woman is. She is a warrior, but she's also someone who is loving and kind. And just because you kill a terrorist who's trying to literally murder a bunch of people doesn't mean that you can't also have the ability to be tender and caring towards the people you're trying to protect. I don't know why it has to be one or the other. And I will say it's one of the few times I've cared about Gadot as Diana since she was introduced in BVS. Ultimately, while I truly believe that Zack Snyder doesn't fundamentally understand these specific heroes, I think this was his best attempt to bring them to life thus far, especially with the scene with Henry Cavill in his black suit at the Fortress of Solitude.
All the hopes and dreams of Krypton live in you now.
I'm so proud of you, son.
Your mother and I loved you.
Your mother and I knew you would change the world.
Your heart was tested,
I know it's been hard, Clark.
but you gave hope to their world.
You need to show them who you are.
Love them, Cal, the way we loved you.
Fly, son. It's time.
The scene of him flying, the voiceover, all of that together finally made me feel like Snyder was getting Superman. That being said, I have no desire to see any more DCEU content from Snyder's perspective. And considering how Warner Brothers treated him after his daughter's death, it makes me feel even more like they don't even deserve him. I may have my issues with his work, but I do not feel like they treated him like a human being. And so I have no interest in him returning to that sort of environment.
My father told me there's this saying in Atlantis. Then I take him back from the darkness.
Not without giving one up in return. You say the same thing.
How about that?
You're gorgeous.
fierce and strong and
You didn't kill Superman. At some point, even you have to learn to move on.
Steve Trevor tell you that?
Yes. They were afraid of him. This is the only way. There are 6, not 5. There's no us without him.
And I think while it's fair to say that this is a much bigger improvement from the theatrical cut, it is still a very bloated film, which needed some more editing and less indulgent shots. And I also think that when it ending on that, like, oh, what could have happened thing, and then you read about what could have happened, and it's like Snyder is like how he planned about having Batman and Lois become a thing, and then Lois dies, and then Superman goes evil, and I was like,
Don't say that.
like, enough. Let's just end on a high note where you don't fridge a woman to do injustice, do the injustice storyline. Like, let's just not. So yeah, I don't need more of this. Also, no CGI beard, so you can see Henry Cavill do what he does best, which is serve face and serve body.
Body crazy, curvy, wavy, big titties, little waist.
Cause he does look good. He do be looking good, side. He be doing that. Everyone will have their own opinions about this movie, so this is just one lone nerdy girl's opinion on the subject. So yeah, I realized I hadn't had this interlude, so I was like, let me just get on here with my tank top and cleavage exposition for you guys. So on that note, if you're watching this and you're enjoying anything that you're seeing on screen right now, please thumbs up, like, subscribe, and share. Buy a hat, buy a mug. And enjoy watching the rest of the video as we get into some of the more dramatic elements of what happened behind the scenes concerning the Snyder Cut. More than anyone or anything else, the person I give credit for allowing the Snyder Cut to happen is Ray Fisher. Ray Fisher was cast as Victor Stone, aka Cyborg, and made a cameo in BVS, but Justice League was his first major film role. In 2020, he made allegations against Joss Whedon and many of the higher-ups in Warner Bros. DC for their alleged treatment of him and others. He accused Whedon of gross, abusive, unprofessional, and completely unacceptable behavior on the set of Justice League. Personally, I believed Fisher, and I still do when these allegations first emerged, for a number of reasons, but the top two being A, black talent are taught self-preservation and have only recently been allowed to feel comfortable making these kinds of statements, and B, Joss Whedon being a toxic person wasn't exactly brand new news at the time of this announcement. Rumors of his treatment of Charisma Carpenter were something that I became aware of later in my time in the Buffy fanbase, and a while before his ex-wife spoke about him using his power on set to be a bit of a sex pest and to cheat on her. Still, the fact that this largely unknown black actor was speaking out against one of the then biggest figures in the nerddom shifted the discourse around the Snyder Cut for many, myself included. While only Jason Momoa actively supported Fisher, eventually people like Charisma Carpenter would add to it, and Gal Gadot would also speak about being uncomfortable. In the Hollywood Reporter piece that came out on April 6, 2021, my birthday, Ray Fisher made the following allegations. Tyranno says he and Snyder took the portrayal of the first black superhero in the DC film universe very seriously, adding, with a white writer and white director, we both thought having the perspective of an actor of color was really important, and Ray is really good with story and character, so he became a partner in creating Victor. In contrast with Whedon, in this kind of collaboration, Fisher said he had to explain some of the most basic points about what would be offensive to the Black community. Cyborg's role in the film also got drastically cut from being a leading role to supporting, and a lot of his scenes were cut and not restored until the Snyder Cut. When it came to discussing the characters, Whedon was also dismissive, according to Fisher. Fisher said he had notes to avoid in terms of representation of the character, but in a call with Whedon, Fisher said he had barely started to talk when the filmmaker cut him off. Quote, "It feels like I'm taking notes right now, and I don't like taking notes from anybody, not even Robert Downey Jr." Other sources say Whedon was similarly dismissive of Godot and Momoa when they questioned few lines. Fisher attempted to turn to Jeff Johns and was told, "We can't make Joss mad." Of course, it didn't seem to matter if Joss made the talent mad. A knowledgeable source says that Godot had multiple concerns with the revised version of the film, including issues about her character being more aggressive. She wanted to make the character flow from one movie to the next. Well, that didn't happen. The biggest clash, sources say, came when Whedon pushed Godot to record lines she didn't like, threatened to harm Godot's career, and disparage Wonder Woman director Patty Jenkins. While Fisher declines to discuss any of what transpired with Godot, a witness on the production who later spoke to investigators said that after one clash, Joss was bragging that he had had it out with Gal. He told her he's the writer and she's gonna shut up and say the lines, and he can make her look incredibly stupid in this movie. When asked for comment, Gal Gadot said in her statement, "I had my issues with Whedon and Warner Brothers handled it in a timely manner." Going back to the issues concerning DC and Snyder, according to another The Hollywood Reporter article, sources say that Snyder was under enormous pressure at the time, that the studio was unhappy with the reception and box office performance of his previous films. Quote, "The bleak Batman v Superman and with Justice League footage already shot, now insisted on a lighter touch." This lighter touch is expanded upon in a Vanity Fair piece that was published in February of this year. I think of all the things that were in the piece and in subsequent pieces about the Snyder Cut that really made me disgusted was how it feels like Autumn's death was used by the studio to course correct on a project because of the previous reception of other Snyder films. But I think it's important to understand how the behind the scenes environment really paved the way for this troubling situation DC is digging itself out of. So the following are going to be quotes from the Vanity Fair piece, as read by me. "Their daughter's death was the reason the Snyders walked away from Justice League, realizing their fighting spirit was needed at home with their other children and with each other. Now she, Autumn, is the main reason he decided to come back." At the end of the movie, it says, "For Autumn," Snyder says, sitting in the shadows of a darkened editing suite. The Snyders tried to keep going for 2 months after Autumn's death, finding solace in finishing Justice League. But by then the situation with Warner Brothers had imploded. The official story was that the Snyders were voluntarily leaving the movie due to their family tragedy, and that Zack had handpicked Whedon to complete the movie he had planned. Only half of that was true. Harsh reviews for Batman v Superman demolished Warner Brothers' confidence in Snyder. Even the director's champions, like producer head Greg Silverman, were worried. When Batman v Superman came out, we did get a negative reaction from the fans. "It was disheartening for all of us," says Silverman, now the founder and head of independent content company Stampede Ventures. "Zack had made these movies like 300 that were such crowd pleasers, and that was our job, to make crowd pleasers. And here we have a movie together and it didn't really please the audience because the script was bad." For Justice League, Warner Brothers wanted a big, round $1 billion in global box office. Girl, what? Which Snyder movies had never reached. In January 2017, the director showed his first cut to Tujihara. It did not go well, according to Snyder and others. Tsujihara, who resigned from Warner Brothers in 2019 amid a sexual misconduct scandal involving aspiring actress Charlotte Kirk, declined an interview request. Among the issues was the length of the film. There was a mandate from Tsujihara that the movie be 2 hours long, says Snyder. That order had a paradoxical impact, because it meant eliminating much of the heart and humor the studio also wanted, like the romantic subplot between Ezra Miller's Flash and Kirstie Clemons' Iris, the latter of whom is absent entirely from the Whedon cut. That scene is very long and extraneous. But it does give that humor that they want so badly. According to Snyder on Whedon's involvement, he would not just advise during reshoots, but also do some directing himself. Snyder says he only had one conversation with Whedon about the studio's notes. Reeling from Autumn's death and finding anguish in their work rather than relief, Zack and Deborah quit. Quote, "We just lost the will to fight that fight in a lot of ways. All of us, the whole family, were just so broken by losing Autumn that having those conversations in the middle of it really became, I was like, really?" Which is fair. I mean, you shouldn't have to deal with that while you're grieving, and it's ridiculous that the studio would make him do that. Just take a breath. Snyder estimates that it cost around $70 million to undo Whedon's redo. God. For that, HBO gets 4 hours of highly anticipated programming and the Hollywood comeback story of a lifetime. Snyder himself gets nothing. "I'm not getting paid," he says. He was paid the first time, of course. This time he wants creative control, and foregoing a fee helped. "I didn't want to be beholden to anyone, and it allowed me to keep my negotiating powers with these people pretty strong." Which is also just a ridiculous thing that it has to get that far, but... So that's the end of the quotes, and honestly, I think it's really gross how Warner Brothers handled the entire situation. I think that when your director's daughter dies, especially dies in such a heartbreaking, sudden way, that you should have empathy and let him work on it, especially because if they had all these issues with the films, like, just give him time then to do his own thing, then force him to make this project, and then bring in Whedon and then kind of like subtly doing like a bait and switch is just not a very ethical way of handling that situation. Like, I get it, you didn't have confidence in Snyder, but then fire Snyder. You know, why are you stringing him along if you don't really believe in his work? Sounds crazy. So following the release of the Snyder Cut, it comes out to like much better reviews, and while it's still like all of Snyder's work deeply polarizing, it did lead his work to being probably the thing that has brought more people into the DCEU than anything that's come out since, especially with 1984 being hot garbage and The Suicide Squad being great but not being as big in terms of box office as people may have hoped. So why exactly was it hard to get excited about the Snyder Cut if you weren't part of the Snyder fan base? Despite the fact that Zack Snyder has a really amazing reputation among those who have worked for him and in the Me Too era, that was one thing that never came out about him. He has said on the record that he's a liberal person and votes Democrat. Plus, looking at his flawed films, he clearly appreciates strong women, even if they can most of the time be strong women TM. He casts diversely because he wants to. He mentions that his casting of Jason Momoa as Aquaman was seen as subversive by the higher ups, but he just thought it was like a natural fit because Jason Momoa is Hawaiian. Yet there is this idea that Snyder and his ilk are alt-right flag wavers and, you know, Proud Boy adjacent. And part of that has to do with the huge online support behind the Snyder Cut, which not only felt the need to defend Snyder, but also treat every bit of criticism as a personal attack, which is frustrating because you can love and support bad movies, but let's not pretend like this is done in the name of genius art. These are comic book movies. And what's worse is this support for a creative artistic direction doesn't translate to female creators. Birds of prey. It tends to like mostly deviate and blame like all the SJWs for ruining him. Nor does it operate by actually calling out the corporate issues within the Marvel Disney brand choices. It just turns everything into an extension of the whole Marvel versus DC thing, except 10 times more annoying because now we have Twitter. Snyder has pushed pushed back slightly against the point that his fans are toxic, pointing out that they've raised a lot of money for suicide prevention. In what world does this toxic fandom raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for suicide prevention? How is that toxic fandom? They've probably achieved more than any other fan base and done more good than any other group. So I don't understand. Well, Snyder wouldn't, because he's a cis heterosexual white man who is being elevated by these people. He's not a woman or a person of color who is being attacked and vilified by some of these Snyder fans who were using the successes of other things and the diversity within comic book movies as a way of saying that we ruined it for them. It's like, no, the higher-ups in Warner Brothers ruined it for your boy. Be mad at them, not over here, over there. Not to mention that sometimes the arguments defending Snyder were just really, really bland. Arguments that Snyder's work was more mature, dark, is not accurate on a deeper level, but it feels true to fans. And so in response to everything, you get a fan base that has embittered and harassed a number of female and BIPOC critics for their crime of not loving the Snyder DCEU. So when after years of them screaming about a conspiracy, they were rewarded with an actual Snyder cut, it felt like a kick in the teeth. And I can admit that it wasn't until the Ray Fisher thing that I fully got on board with it. And even within the entire situation before Fisher, I'd gone back and forth about the Snyder cut. Because these cuts, like the Ayers cut, the Yang cut, it speaks larger to a inability of Warner Brothers to really trust their creators, male and female. But that support, like the support for Birds of Prey, is nowhere. The support for Suicide Squad pales in comparison to the Snyder stuff. So it's like, why, if you are so convinced and want this thing to happen for DC, why is it only this one guy? Like, why isn't it everybody else? And when it comes down to it, do I think the Snyder cut is good? Yes. Is it superior to the previous cut? Yes. Does it validate everything else that was done to bring it here? No. And I think that despite liking the Snyder cut and respecting him as a non-sex pest director, I am still allowed to think that he was not the right person to helm DC. Snyder comes across as a very cynical comic book consumer, and that's fine. There is a place for that in comic book movie adaptations. You know, get you a Spawn, get you a Punisher, get you, even a Deadpool. I could see him doing a Deadpool kind of thing. And I've spoken about this a lot, including in Maggie Mae Fish's video about the Snyder world. And she also has a cool film notebook, and I own it, and it's very good. So if you're gonna get my merch, get hers too. But here's my thing with Snyder. He doesn't get Superman. This is something that is not unique to Snyder. People have really become infatuated with the idea of a cynical fascist Superman because he's so powerful. He's the Ubermensch symbolically. However, all of that comes at the expense of who he is as a character at his core, especially since he is symbolically a Jewish man. And also, it's like they always turn Superman bad, while Hal Jordan has literally turned into an evil tyrannical killer when he became Parallax, yet for some reason my boy Khalil is the one who's chosen to be the big bad of the Justice League. It's like, look to your own community before you come for mine, okay? Look to thy own self, okay? Hal Jordan is a cop. The core of Superman is that he is a man with the powers of a god. Not that he's a god who pretends to be a man. And I think a lot of people took that Kill Bill Volume 2 monologue to a place where they really believe that Clark secretly looks down on humans. The whole quote where Bill's like, Clark Kent is Superman's critique on the whole human race.
Clark Kent is how Superman views us. And what are the characteristics of Clark Kent? He's weak. He's unsure of himself. He's a coward. Clark Kent is Superman's critique on the whole human race.
No. Clark Kent is his AU so he can get away with his disguise being glasses. He presents Clark as the very opposite of Superman because otherwise he would get clocked. Superman is Superman because he loves humanity, because his human parents instilled values in him that make him want to help people. He chooses it every day. Watch my video on a cynical superhero for more of this, but that is who Superman is.
This little guy was crazy for Christmas. We used to wrap his presents in lead foil so he couldn't peek.
You mean Santa wrapped them?
Oh, of course, dear.
This is in direct contrast to how Snyder writes him, where Snyder's appreciation for Ayn Rand and the Fountainhead is just so wow. For those of you who may not know, Ayn Rand is a Russian-American writer and philosopher. She was best known for two things: her fiction, and she achieved fame with the novel The Fountainhead, and then later her best known and long as fuck work, Atlas Shrugged, and she's also known for developing the philosophy known as objectivism.
Ayn Rand became famous for her philosophy of objectivism, which is a nice way of saying being a selfish asshole.
Why is it good to want others to be happy? We can make others happy when and if those others mean something to you selfishly.
Nothing about that is like Batman or Superman or any actual DC hero worth their salt. The philosophy is just not a good framework for that incarnation of superheroes. Like, especially because all their villains are like especially objectivist. I mean, who's more deluded into seeing himself in that objectivist way than my future first husband, Lex Luthor? I mean, when me and Michael Rosenbaum get together, it's gonna be legend. Like, don't at me about it. It's gonna happen. I'm gonna be Princess Rosenbaum. It's gonna be fire. Just wait. In my opinion, the best DCEU films are the one that lean into the comic book world fun. You know, like, it sucks that Shazam is the best Superman movie we've gotten in decades. It sucks that in the post Nolanverse world that we had this idea that to make a really compelling superhero movie, you had to strip them of everything that was compelling about them in the comics, like the fun, the color, the optimism. Objectively, everyone's favorite Batman from the animated series, is at his core a very kind, empathetic person. He's just also vengeance and the night. It doesn't be like that. Could take multitudes.
Yay. There's one thing I gotta know. Why'd you stay with me all day, risking your butt for someone who's never given you anything but trouble?
I know what it's like to try and rebuild a life. I had a bad day too, once.
Are you married?
No, I'm not.
Do you have a girlfriend?
No, I don't, but, if I did, Miss Lane, you'd be the first to know about it.
All right, now that I've changed into what I affectionately call my Gabrielle shirt, we're gonna break this up into something a little bit fun. We're gonna rank, besides Joker, all the films in the DCEU. So let's start with the worst.
Just like a bat. I dig it.
I would argue that Justice League, the Whedon cut, is the least good film in the DCEU, mainly because it just emotionally, tonally feels like a total disconnect from the entire thing. It's clumsy, it's lazy, it's rushed. The characters all feel the same. They're all making the same jokes and references. It's very Whedon-esque. And I also feel like now you can more clearly see the cracks in how Whedon chose to create this world versus Snyder. And it really shows a difference. After that, I would say Suicide Squad by David Ayer. Actually, I own all of them, so I don't know how to say it. So yeah, last is Justice League. Then Suicide Squad. And yes, I have seen the extended cut.
You don't have the balls.
The biggest issue with Suicide Squad is that it has no plot. It has no structure. It's like a bunch of music videos slapped together haphazardly. The characters like feel like a really, really weird Fast and the Furious parody. They become a family at the very end. It has like a very excellent cast. Like the cast is like chef's kisses, but it does absolutely nothing with it. Enchantress is one of the shittiest villains ever, which sucks if we finally get a female villain in one of these damn movies, and it's like totally sucks. Hate every moment of it. Yeah, it's just a really dull, silly movie, and the extended cut, it just has more Harley, but it's not a better made film. Again, and the thing right too, they all release these extended cuts and then they're like, but we have even more footage. It's like, but the footage you got ain't slapping. I don't own Wonder Woman 1984 because I don't dislike myself quite that much.
That's just a trash can.
It's just a trash can. Yeah.
Also, I just haven't bought it yet because I really don't want to spend that money on it. But yeah, Wonder Woman 1984 is dog shit. Did a review of it, but it only highlights why Gal Gadot will never be my Wonder Woman and why I really just... that entire character to me is just like so, just written in such a weird way. I was talking to my sister the other day and I was just telling her like, the feminism of Wonder Woman feels so like 10, 15 years too late. I can't even contemplate it. And then you have Cheetah out here doing Michelle Pfeiffer and I can't do it. Terrible movie, don't like it, it's bad. After Wonder Woman 1984, I would say the next one is...
What was I supposed to do? Just let him die?
Maybe.
Man of Steel. This is nearly 4 hours of special features. I think, so I've recently rewatched it because I did a whole rewatch a couple, like at the beginning of quarantine. You might see it on my Twitter if you go back far enough. Fundamentally, to me, this just doesn't feel like a Superman movie. Like there are some really good scenes. You know, my man, Michael Shannon can be an angry white man with the best of them. So he was really good in this. Excellent gowns. Amy Adams, even though she's a redhead, now will always vex me to a point. Great as Lois. She and, you know, Henry Cavill actually have really good chemistry. Henry Cavill could possibly be a good Superman, but the material is not slapping. And I think to me, it's just Papa Kent being all nihilistic. Like when I think the exact moment, and my brother and I both laughed about this, because the moment in theater where I was like, what is happening, is when like the twister alarm goes off and like Superman could save his dad, but they go back for a dog, but then his dad's like, no, just let me die, it's cool. And I'm just like, for what though? Like, but you could save him. Like, why? It was so ridiculous, so silly. My Gravity Falls tattoo is a little peely. It just doesn't feel like Superman. It's so dark and bland. And I think also like, so I cry all the time when I watch when I watch Superman the animated series, I always cry at the destruction of Krypton. It gets me every single time. Like it makes me so sad. It has been done so well. Like when I was watching Supergirl, like how they were doing the Krypton stuff, crying.
Before our parents sent us to Earth, nobody here knew about Krypton. Now there are stories, celebrations, museum exhibits. Just like you shared our home with your family, we shared our home with this whole world. Krypton's not just a place, it's a spirit. It's hope. It's sacrifice. It's what our parents did for us.
Felt nothing. Never feel anything. This is how I know it's not chosen. Because I'm, as a Kryptonian, I felt nothing. It doesn't represent my people. And a controversial pick, I will actually say Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Again, Ultimate Edition. All them hours. I would say this is better than Man of Steel. It's just a little bit more entertaining, and I will say Gal Gadot is not for me for many reasons, but Snyder is the only one who I feel can really bring out her little stays on, because she was slapping in this. There's a reason she's in the middle, because we came here to see her. Because I will never forget, like I saw this movie and I was like, this movie is dog shit. Like I came here to see Jesse Eisenberg turn up as a Luthor. It's not giving that to me. Batman got lifted off by bats. Titans just did that shit. It was violent to my soul. But then when Wonder Woman came out and like did her shield thing, and I was like, and it was like, I was like that was the moment. That was a moment. I do think it's like, there is something kind of entertaining about this film. Because the thing about it too, this film is iconic. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's bad. It's not good, but it's iconic. And when you watch it, you can see like the drippings. This is the little pork fat of a good idea, you know, just in there. But then it just can't help but not be good, you know? It just can't help but be a little ridiculous. But I will admit, I can rewatch this and have fun with it a lot more than I can Man of Steel. Then, reluctantly, because we can't be too biased here, I would say Wonder Woman after that.
She's taking all the fire. Let's go!
I won't make a bunch of spiel about this because I feel like I've talked about this before in many other places, but to me, this just doesn't feel really fulfilling as a Wonder Woman film. I don't think Gal Gadot really brings it as a character in this. I think the relationship between her and Steve Trevor is well, it has really good chemistry, but just makes her entire thing about a guy in a very weird way. I don't really like that they make Diana the daughter of Zeus and the demigod. Like, I know that's part of one Wonder Woman canon. And I think the thing too about it is that the way that Patty Jenkins sees Wonder Woman is not how I see Wonder Woman, so it's just never gonna really click, you know. And that's the thing about a character like Wonder Woman, is that she's had so many different origin stories and incarnations depending on who's writing her. Like, it's very nebulous. Like, there's no one Wonder Woman, so you can like her in certain things and just dislike her in other ones. This is just not for me. It's just not for me. It's well made, you know. It gave me like, and the Amazon stuff at the beginning, I was like, baby Diana be eating the rolls. But I just, And then after that, I would say the Snyder Cut. I really, like I said before, I really enjoyed the Snyder Cut. It felt like a comic book movie come to life in like a really rich way. Like, I enjoyed all the Easter eggs. I enjoyed the depth given to Cyborg. The Diana scene, how she's like helping the kids and she's like, "Are you okay, princess?" I was like, Diana, I am not okay, but thank you so much for asking, girl. Thank you.
You okay, princess?
Can I be like you someday?
You can be anything you want to be.
It's the first time I actually felt like Diana actually missed the mascara. I felt the Amazons died with a lot of dignity. I felt like Batman felt really good. Like, I even feel like there was hints of him getting Superman in this. There's this one scene where like he's leaving the Fortress of Solitude. I'm like, okay, like, you're getting there. I also love the stuff with Lois. Like, to me, this is just a much better made film, and even though it's very long and it has so many songs, so many, that vinyl would be like longer than the fucking thing. So even though all of that even though it has flaws, to me this film was great. I love the humor in it, the stuff between Diana and Arthur talking about their Atlantean, Amazonian heritage. All this stuff was just really, really neat and well done and well put together, and I found myself really loving how what came together as like just a DC fan. It felt like what I wanted Justice League to feel like. So it hit the mark. Even though there are clear flaws with it, it hit the mark. Enjoy it. After that, I would say the Suicide Squad. I think the Suicide Squad is a excellent R-rated movie, and in a perfect world it would be making Deadpool money, because I feel like it's just on par with that. Love seeing Idris Elba as a deadbeat father, love that for the culture. Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn is probably the only incarnation of Harley Quinn that will ever matter to me besides the original animated one. Sorry, Big Bang Theory girl. As soon as I make Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn bisexual, it's gonna be over for everybody else. It's gonna be over. That's all we want. Especially now Zoe Kravitz and her thigh high heel is out here. We ready. Love seeing an OG villain like Starro up in here. I think it really hit the mark. And I love it. So let's get to my big three. The three best DC superhero movies that they've done of the DCEU. And I'm sure these won't surprise you, but the order might if you don't read my work on the Mary Sue. At number 3 is Shazam.
Some fighting bad guys.
Yeah. Shazam is probably the best Superman movie that we've gotten from the DCEU. It was super charming. That scene with him when he gets that, like when he says Shazam and gets hit by lightning, that is like up there with the Miles Morales scene for me. It's such a great, powerful, well done scene. I love the found family vibes. It felt like a full film. It took me forever to watch it, but once I finally did, I was like, this is popping. Number 2 on the list, Birds of Prey.
Dash of hot sauce.
Not too much, Sal.
Want to taste the cheese?
You know, this is a Birds of Prey fan account. I've already said it. I've already told you to watch it if you haven't seen it. Sorry about the loud noises. I already told you to see it if you haven't, but Birds of Prey is excellent. I think, again, up there with the Deadpool movies. It has a few flaws. I think that also, more than a lot of other DC movies, I fill in the gaps a lot for me in this. I think that, like, a lot of things that people complain about, I'm like, but I knew that. Everyone's like, but how do you know, like, Black Canary, where her powers come from? I'm like, you mean you don't know? So I definitely understand why it had a weird release. I do think that it could have easily been cut to a PG-13, but I think it had amazing fight choreography. The heroines had really good chemistry. I love the jokes. I watched it in theaters 4 times before the pandemic hit. So I'm all in with Birds of Prey. But that being said, I think that Aquaman is my number 1 pick.
Permission to come aboard.
Aquaman, more than anyone, is what set the correct turn, because Aquaman made biggins money. Okay, Aquaman made The Dark Knight Rises money, made The Dark Knight money. Like, Aquaman was huge in a weird way, but it was so incredible to watch. It's so fun. It feels so much like a comic book movie. I'm not gonna say her name because I'm gonna have to deal with all the people coming in here, but Mara was great, and Jason Momoa, I think, has the charisma to be a leading man in a way that a lot of people don't give him credit for. Like, yes, he's not like a super strong actor with a versatility range, but like, he's just as good as John Wayne, if you ask me. He was very good at this. Also, Black Manta. It's just a very delectable cast, and it's a fun film, and I think there's a reason it made $1 billion, and it's Aquaman, outperforming Justice League, outperforming everybody, and yet we still haven't had a sequel to it yet.
Oh, I don't think you've ever known a woman like me.
Right now, the DCEU has 5 films in development: Black Adam, The Flash, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, Batgirl, and Shazam! Fury of the Gods, with 4 of those supposed to come out in 2022, almost back to back. And what sucks is that, save for The Flash, honestly, all of these stories have the potential to be interesting, but I feel like other than the celebrity element, the excitement is just not there. It doesn't help that, again, 1984 was complete dog poo, and that Suicide Squad was a box office disappointment, and even in COVID times, like, that's still a thing, because, like, it grossed, like, I believe, like, under 170 million worldwide against a production budget of 180 million. What does that even mean in a pandemic? And it's like, well, if it's comparing itself to Black Widow or Shang-Chi, then it still matters, because Black Widow still broke several pandemic box office records and grossed over, you know, almost 400 million worldwide, and, you know, was like this, and Shang-Chi grossed over 400 million worldwide, and they both were high grossing films. DC is seeing that even in a pandemic, Marvel movies are doing well. Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage, which is a masterpiece, has grossed more than the Suicide Squad, which again, I'm not mad about, because Venom 2 is art, and it only had a budget of like 110 million, so they can make that money back ASAP Ferg. But it's also a huge discouraging thing for people who are working at the DCEU. I mean, Aquaman is a $1 billion franchise, despite featuring a superhero that is a giant joke because of the talent of Momoa and James Wan. Birds of Prey is one of the best R-rated superhero movies I've ever seen. Shazam is an incredibly well done film, yet they are not only underperforming what they should, they are being dragged down by the pre-existing DCEU fandom brand. Titans, Doom Patrol, and even Harley Quinns are shows that are so much more interesting than the majority of the MCU, and yet they aren't getting as much attention on the day-to-day interactions, and that is a huge problem. DC has all the tools in its hands to be a huge success, but it needs to understand what it has so it can finally move forward to becoming the powerhouse it has all the potential to be. And that means changes behind the scenes to help it shed a lot of the toxic fat and thrive, but also to trust in the people they bring in to do something right, like believe in their vision. And if you can't do that, at least copy and paste episodes of Justice League Unlimited, because we know that works.